Guys, first of all, welcome up. You've been through all the introductions before. You haven't met me yet. My name's Steve. I'm from Township of Wellesley Fire Department. I'm Deputy Chief there in charge of training, and I'm also a firefighter in the City of Kitchener, a captain at Station 2, which is one of our busier stations there. Been doing this for a few years. This is what we're talking about, handling propane emergencies, propane cylinder fires training. The goals of what we want to do today is we want to review the basic principles of properties of LPG as liquid petroleum gas, perform attacks on the live PP or LPG cylinder we have out there, develop hose team handling skills, identify proper nozzle size and flow, which for what we're doing out there, we're going to reduce the flow, identify proper pattern selection and confidence building. And we've had some issues just with hose handling procedures, so that's a big thing that we really want to pay a lot of attention to today, because that is part and parcel of what gets it done without people tripping and what have you, okay? Control of flammable gas cylinder fire. Task, control of flammable gas cylinder fire. We want to make sure we identify the safe havens prior to advance. It's not any different than when you approach any other fire. You want to make sure you know what you're doing, is it's safe to do so. Maintain crew integrity. Whenever we're doing any firefighting activities, regardless of what it is, we're always staying in crews, at least 2, depending on how many guys you have. It might be 3 or 4, but we're always staying with at least 2 crew members. We're going to identify the cylinder contents. Could be propane, it could be just air, it could be an air cylinder, an O2 cylinder, whatever. So let's make sure that we know what we're getting into. Evaluate the cylinder integrity. Has it been damaged? Is there fire impinging on it? That's all stuff that's going to come into play when we're doing this kind of stuff. Close all valves that are open. You don't want to close any. If you can close the valves, giddy up. But if you cannot close the valves and there's fire, do not put that fire out. We want to make sure keep that fire going so that we can control that leaking gas. Okay, so we're going to leave the fire going. But for today's purposes, we don't have any valves that we're closing. Just going to go in there and simulate. Flames are not extinguished unless leaking gas is eliminated. Touched on that. If we can eliminate it, if we can turn a valve off, we're going to do that. We're going to cool the cylinder. We're going to cool that whole cylinder. For this one out here, it's an upright one. We're just cooling the cylinder with both lines. If it's an oblong one or something, you may need more water and bigger hoses than what we currently have out there today, but we're going to deal with what we have out there today. Cylinders faced during approach and retreat. Whenever we're going on to approaching it, we always want to be looking at it, and the same as when we're backing away from it, we're never turning our back on it. We're always keeping water on it and backing up in a fashion, and you guys have probably did some hose line advancement either yesterday or today, and we're going to dwell on that as we go along. Properties of petroleum gas. Propane is a gas that can be readily stored and transported in liquid under pressure. We've all seen propane trucks running down the road. Probably have some propane storage facilities around here, propane barbecues, whatever. So you guys know how it is transported and what it's packaged in. It's colorless, odorless. They add the ethyl mercaptan to it so that you can smell it if there is a leak. If it wasn't for that, you could get yourself in trouble. So same as natural gas, they add the ethyl mercaptan to that as an odorant so you can smell it. Under normal outdoor temperatures, liquefied propane expands rapidly into gas, approximately 270 to 1. Okay? Propane gases are not toxic, but they do present an inhalation hazard. Does anybody know what we mean when we're talking about inhalation hazard? Oxygen. Yeah, okay? So you'll basically suffocate if you go into a propane-enriched environment without a breathing apparatus on, depending on the concentration, okay? So it displaces the oxygen. Specific gravity is in comparison to water, okay? Propane, water being 1, propane is 0.504, which means it's lighter than water, so it's going to be on top of the water. Okay, so that's, always think of specific gravity and vapor density compared to, well, specific gravity is water, vapor density, which is the next slide, is air, and that's compared to air, and air is 1. 60 degrees F, 15 degrees C, vapor density of propane is 1.50, so that's heavier than air. So if you get a propane leak somewhere, it's going to go low. For example, if we had a propane leak here, it would travel its way, make its way down the stairs. So that's where you're going to have your concentration of gas. Even though the leak's up here, you're going to have to deal with it here, but you're going to have huge concentrations downstairs in the lower area. As compared to natural gas is going to go higher. Okay, so make sure you understand the difference in the gases. Properties of propane. Fuel-to-air mixture based on the percent. Lower explosive limit, LEL, and upper explosive limits. Flammable range is 2.15% to 9.60%. So if you're right at the leak, chances are you're going to be okay because it's going to be too rich. But the farther away you get from that, you're going to get it into in between the 2.15 and the 9.60%, and that's where you've got your explosive range there. So you have to be very, very careful of that. Sometimes we get confused. You think you get closer to the product. That's where the danger area is. Probably isn't because it's too rich. So you got farther out you move, and if you've got a monitor there and it gets into that explosive range, you know you've got troubles, okay? And then you got to get away from it, get out into the leaner area. So just be aware of that. The ignition temperature, just keeping in Celsius, is 490 degrees to 604 degrees Celsius. Decision-making process, similar to what we do when we go to most fires. Number one is there a life hazard? If there is, we're going to deal with that the best way we can. What is the risk to property? Propane cylinders might be up as similar to what the barbecue propane prop is. It's propane cylinders up against a house or a wall of a house or something like that. You might have to get water on that exposure right away, so keep that in mind. Is there adequate and reliable water supply? I don't know what your departments carry for water supply on their trucks, but it's good to know that kind of stuff. I'm going to come out here, I'm going to apply at least 550 liters a minute out of one line, and then we're going to bring another line, so there's 1,000 liters a minute. Do you have that supply in order to accommodate that? You might be able to keep that supply up for maybe 5 minutes tops until you run out of water, so make sure that you understand that part of it. What will happen if we do not intervene or take no action or other than isolating the area? Sometimes you might not have an option. If you don't have enough water, you can't get close to it, depending on the size of the tank, you may have to evacuate that whole area and just let it go. Understanding the consequences, it's going to be a lot of destruction. But the main thing is, guys, is we all want to go home, and let's make sure everybody else goes home too. There's no sense in going in there when you know that's kind of iffy. So isolate the area and let her go, get things set up on the exterior. Okay? Do I have enough time to intervene? That's going to be an officer's call. Take a look at what's happened, how long the incident has been going on. Has there been flame impingement for a long time? Is the tank damaged? You may have to get binoculars to take a look. Do you hear pinging? Because pinging is an indication that there's a levy. Maybe the relief valve isn't releasing quick enough. So you got to put all them things into play. And once again, that's going to be an officer's decision, and hopefully he makes the right one. Hopefully. Are flames impinging on the vapor space? The vapor space is the top part at the top. That's the most important because that's where it converts to gases, and that's going to heat up quicker. So if there's flames impinging on that, you want to get water on that, and that's where you're going to want your water to begin with anyways. But that obviously makes the game a little different. And can a container failure / levy occur? That's a levy there. Here's what a levy is. That's a propane tank there. You get fire underneath it. You see the vapor at the top. You got your relief valve at the top. And as long as that relief valve can keep up, releasing the pressure, you're probably going to be okay. Hopefully the propane tank isn't damaged. But if that propane or that relief valve cannot keep up with the building pressure, you've got trouble. You're going to hear that start to ping, and everything's just going to start going and going. So you want to get water on that and try to get that flame away from there also. But as soon as you start here pinging, it's going to be game over. You're going to have a levy. Hose and nozzle minimum flow. I don't know what you use for your hose lines. We're talking 45 mil here, which is 1 3/4 inches. Minimum flow of 550 liters a minute. So you're going to flow that out of one line. Nozzle should be full range combination style nozzle, and that's what we have here. I think they're 550 at, I don't know, 500 kPa or something, I think, Dan, or something like that. I think they are, right? So you just put them at the pattern you want, and you open them up and let you go. 2 hose lines are going to be used for the attack crews, and a minimum of 1 backup line. For direct flame impingement, you want to get up to 950 to 1,900 liters a minute. That's for a big tank. You're going to use that. That's going to be at least 165, maybe a couple, maybe even a ground monitor. So the evolution, we're going to use 2 attack hose lines, 2 people on each line, and then we're going to have a backup guy. Guys, we really want to concentrate on our backup guy to the nozzle because that's where all the work is pretty much being done. We want to make sure you understand what your responsibilities are when you're the one behind the nozzle man. That's basically doing all the work because the nozzle guy's got enough to do controlling the nozzle, adjusting his pattern as he goes along. He shouldn't have to work really hard in order to advance that line. That's up to the backup guy. And what do they call the hose tender at the back to help that out. So we're going to really try to concentrate our efforts on that, and Dan's going to help us with that today too. 2 hose tenders, 10 to 15 feet behind the backup guy. And Dan and I talked, and I talked to Rich earlier. They show in there with the hose tender, the middle slide there, they've got the hose up over their shoulder, and they're helping out there. The key to that is make sure that that hose between the hose tender and the backup guy is touching the ground. Our safety line is going to be one of the 2 lines that are there because both lines are fed from a different source. So if we have a problem with one line, we've still got water supplied from another. So that's what both lines are going to be safety lines if one has an issue. Okay? The evolution. Prior to advancing, we're going to cool the cylinder with straight streams, both nozzles covering the entire cylinder. Depending on the distance away you are, that's going to dictate on the stream that you're going to have. But that cylinder is up and down, so we're going to just keep water on it. It might be a narrow fog, and then as you start to approach it, you're going to have to widen your fog pattern up. But you want to keep the whole thing covered. During advanced protective patterns, start with a 30-degree fog, and obviously, as you get closer, widen up your fog pattern. We want to push the liquid or vapor away from the attack lines and provide protective cover. And it's worked very well so far this morning. Nozzle persons are located on the inside, so everybody's going to be on the same side of the hose. I'm going to be in the middle, and each person's going to be here, and the lines are going to be on the outside. A couple times people aren't used to working like this. We had a couple, so we can move you from side to side if need be, but we need everybody on the same side of the hose. The backup person is located directly behind the nozzle person, and if you did some hose line advancement, you'll understand what that means. And the hose tenders are responsible to move the hose forward and backwards and make sure that nobody trips over the hose when you're backing up. That's very, very important. Under the command of the lead instructor, who shall be located between and slightly behind the nozzles, we're going to move as synchronized steps towards the object. We're going to feet to shoulder width apart, and we're just going to walk up. I'm going to bark orders out. We're going to be talking as we're going along, and every time I say step, we're going to step in synchronized fashion so that everybody gets it done. Okay? If one nozzle team gets a little ahead, we'll get them to stop. We'll get the other one to move up, but we'll communicate that all the way through. Advance and withdrawal. We're going to move it just like synchronized swimming. Away we go, nice and smooth. And guys, it's not a race. We'll just take our time, walk up, walk back as we go along. On the command, we're going to back up. Nozzle in front, backup person shall move. I don't know, did you guys go through this procedure when you were doing some of your other hose line advancements as far as standing on the low line, going like this? It's like you're dancing. And then when you back up, it's just the reverse. We don't want anybody crossing over because that's a possibility when you could get tripped up. Okay? Clear, concise instructions are necessary. There's lots of noise. Most fire scenes are very, very noisy. So if it sounds like I'm hollering, I'm not hollering because I'm mad. I'm just hollering because I want you to be able to hear me. And if I'm too loud, let me know. But hopefully I'm not. Okay? We're going to cool the tank, straight stream to narrow fog. Both lines are going to sweep the cylinder. Follow forward step by step and withdrawal and step by step. When we stop, the attack lines will freeze in a position with water flowing. So we're stopping. If we move up, we have to wait for somebody. We want to make sure we keep water flowing onto the lines or onto the propane cylinder. The safety line, we're not going to have the safety line, but if for some reason, say a line breaks, somebody trips, the line that's still in service, their job is to keep water on the fire, get the other line, hopefully get them step back up or pull it out of the way, but we're going to retreat. But it's very, very important to keep water flowing on the fire, okay? Keep flowing on the tank. Hands-on training. Everybody's going to be in full PPE, breathing apparatus, what have you. We're going to really concentrate on the hose handling performances and the practices because that seems, as I said, seems to be their Achilles heel. And teams will fight missions against propane cylinder prop. Safety on the fire ground. We're out there to have fun, guys, but we're out there to learn also, okay? Okay, let's make our way out, grab your stuff, and we'll see you out at that propane prop. Okay, thanks, guys.